Well, I did not intend to make a third consecutive defensive end video for the Detroit Lions, but this morning, this one was dropped in my lap, and it was too good to pass up on. Coming from Ian Rappaport, this was a few hours ago, says, sources, Eagles All-Pro edge rusher Hasson Reddick has received permission to seek a trade following another disruptive season featuring double-digit sacks. The 29-year-old with 27 sacks over 2 seasons in Philly could land elsewhere. Now, this is quite intriguing because when it came to Hasson Reddick and the trade deadline was getting closer and closer, his name was a name that came up quite a bit for being a trade candidate. Now, this is talking about this kind of sparks me a little bit because we've talked about free agency, but we haven't talked about a trade. There's a lot of guys that fit the Brad Holmes mold. I think you have to be grit. You have to have all that stuff. But again, one thing Brad Holmes has not done has spent a bunch of money. And one of these premier edge rushers is going to cost a ton of money. Now, the Hasson Reddick thing, trade-wise, when I first thought about it, it didn't make sense. But I'm going to show you why it could make sense for the Detroit Lions to do this, okay? Hasson Reddick via a trade, all right? Now, before we jump into his contract, let's look at the 2023 NFL season for Hasson Reddick, 29 years old, so he will be 30 just like Danielle Hunter. He's 5 weeks older than Danielle, 6'1", 240, so not as big as Danielle, out of Temple. First round, 13th overall, played for the Arizona Cardinals, then the Carolina Panthers, spent a year there, and then the last 2 or 3 with the Philadelphia Eagles. Had 29 solo tackles, 11 sacks, 1 forced fumble. So he is not necessarily the game wrecker that Danielle Hunter is. He doesn't weigh as much. He's not as big as Danielle, okay? But here is why this could actually be something that makes sense for the Detroit Lions. Now, like I said, at first, when I heard the word trade, I just shot it down. He could also, I doubt he's released. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to try to get something for him. He could be released, though, but I doubt he is. But here's why it could make sense for the Detroit Lions to trade for Hasson Reddick. Hasson Reddick, coming from Spot Track, signed a 3-year, $45 million contract with the Philadelphia Eagles, including $14.2 in signing bonus, $30 million guaranteed, and an average annual salary of $15 million. In 2024, Reddick will earn a base salary of $14.2 million and a roster bonus of $1 million and a workout bonus of $250,000 while carrying a cap hit of $21 million and a dead cap value of $20.6. Now, the dead cap, the Philadelphia Eagles ain't worried about that. They already said that they he can request a trade. The cap hit, request a trade. So they are willing to eat this money. But here is why that the Detroit Lions, it would make sense for them to trade for Hasson Reddick. Well, first of all, you have the capital. What are the Philadelphia Eagles going to ask for Hasson Reddick? I think that they're going to ask for a minimum. They're going to ask for a minimum of a second-round pick. That's just what I think they're going to do, potentially a second and a third in a different year. I think it's going to be at least 2 picks. I think the second is going to be the highest that they're going to do. I could see them doing like a second and third. TJ Hockenson went for a second and a third. Okay. Hasson Reddick is right in that wheelhouse. All right. So I'm thinking a second and third, somewhere around there for Hasson Reddick. But this is why it can make sense. Let me show you. It's one crucial thing right here. $14 million. This is why. So if he gets traded, he is only going to be on whatever team for 1 year if they do not extend him. Okay. So here's why this could make sense for the Detroit Lions. $14 million. That is probably to get a edge rusher of Hasson's caliber for $14 million is a pretty big deal, because we talked about a guy the other day that had a breakout season, undrafted. I forgot the guy's name, but I made a video about him. You guys didn't seem too interested in it, but he is going to command the same amount of money per year, about $13, $14 million. in his next contract. Hasson Reddick would be a cheap, that $14 million for an 11 sack guy would be cheap for 1 year. Now, we know Brad loves his 1 year deals. We know this. He would absorb Hasson Reddick's, the Detroit Lions would absorb that contract. And essentially, Brad Holmes wouldn't have to do anything. They can make a decision if they traded him, when the trade happened, whether or not they were going to let that year ride out, see how Hasson does, or extend him, right? While the trade is happening. So my question to you is, if the Eagles said, now the Detroit Lions have 2 third-round picks this year. If the Eagles said, okay, we'll give us your 3rd-round pick in 2024 and your 2nd-round pick in 2025, would you trade for Hasson Reddick? That is risky, knowing that this guy is going to be a 17-game rental. Now, we talked about rentals at the trade deadline, so you have 10 games versus 17. Hasson could have an entire offseason to be with his new team. So in this case, the Detroit Lions. So this is intriguing because you have to balance the future with the now. And we know that the Detroit Lions were 1 game away from the Super Bowl. Shoot, we were 30 minutes away from the Super Bowl. We know that Dan Campbell said we're going to the Super Bowl next year. We know that that is the Detroit Lions' primary goal. So let's say that we don't extend him. Hasson Reddick, $14 million, $14.2 million. His cash annual value is 15.5. Hasson Reddick, 1 year deal, $14 million, but you would have to give up a 3rd and a 2nd round pick. My thoughts. Hasson would be the cheapest pass rusher of his status that we could get. I'm going to keep it a buck. They all going for about, a low tier guy is going for about 13, 14. So Hasson Reddick, 1 year, because we don't know if he would be extended, for a 2nd and a 3rd. I'm going to say, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I need some time, but you put me on the spot. I'm putting myself on the spot here. I'm going to say, you save. That's a lot. That's a lot. Because TJ Hawkinson, the Minnesota Vikings had 2 years, because now TJ is going into his 5th year. And that sucks for them, because I just remembered he might be ready by the start of the season. Okay. Would I do this? 2nd and 3rd, a 3rd in 2020, 3rd in 2024, a 2nd in 2025, and he may not be on the team. I don't know. Would I do it? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't do it. I would do it if I could sign him for 2 more years. I got to get 2 years out this guy. But then you have, can the Detroit Lions, if they win the Super Bowl, it would be worth it. Okay, so you're saving money, millions and millions of dollars, but you're giving up that 2nd round pick. That's the one. That's the one. I don't know, y'all. I don't know. I need your help on this one. Would you trade Hasson Reddick for essentially a 1 year deal for a 2nd round 2025 pick and a 3rd round 2024 pick? If you could guarantee that we won the Super Bowl, I would say yes. Obviously, you can't, right? So I'm going to say, here's what I'm going to say. It sounds like this is something Brad would do. Brad, we know sometimes he can be loose with them trades, man. He can be loose. The Trinity Benson, the Broderick Martin. So I'm going to say, would I do it? Probably not. Would Brad Holmes do it? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say he will. I'm sorry, y'all. I went through the process in real time because I did this in real time. So I hadn't thought about it at all past the initial point. I'm going to say this is something Brad Holmes would do. He would give up a 2nd and a 3rd for a 1 year rental because Brad is about saving funds. And that's what he would do. Because a 3rd round pick is not going to cost you that much. A 2nd round pick is going to cost you a little bit more. So I'm going to say this. Don't be surprised if Brad was to make a move like this. Plus, don't forget DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift, wait a second. DeAndre Swift was traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. I can't remember what pick it was, but there's a pick coming up in either this year or next year's draft. Huh. Okay. All right. So what if we gave the Swift pick back to the Philadelphia Eagles next year? And we give them, and don't forget, Darius Slay went for a third and a fifth. So I'm going to say yes. If we can get the Philadelphia Eagles to take back the Swift pick, which I want to say is a fifth rounder, and we'll give them TJ Hawkinson's pick. I'll give them TJ and a fifth rounder next year, the TJ Hawkinson pick. Yep, that's what I'll do. Or I'll give them our pick because our pick is later. That's what I would do. I'll give them our pick and DeAndre Swift's pick back for a 1-year rental of Hasson Reddick. I would do that. All right. So we went through it together, but I still want to know your opinion. Let me know your thoughts. Hasson Reddick, would you trade? Put your trade. What would you want? What is the way you would, or why wouldn't you take him? Put that down in the comments section below. This is getting real good. I say Brad does something like this because if you look at the funds, this is a Brad Holmes type of funds dude. Throw them a couple picks and take on $14 million for essentially a 1-year deal. You never know. He could re-sign here next year. You know what I'm saying? Especially if we win the Super Bowl. So anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You guys are awesome. Take care of yourself and each other. And as always, go Lions. You went into a real time way of how my mind works.